15 minutes after 7 o'clock in Antigua, Barbuda. This is Observer AM, and now it is time for us to join the General Secretary of the Democratic National Alliance as we seek to get an update on what's happening with the party post-Congress, which of course would have taken place just not so long ago, where the party put certain structures in place to make it, or certainly bring it to the point where people realize or recognize that they are quite serious about potentially governing this country. And joining us, Mr. Gatesworth James. He's joining us on the line. Good morning, Mr. James. How are you?
Good morning, Darren, and good morning to your many listeners.
All right. I trust that you're well.
I am pretty fine this morning, thank God.
All right. Happy to hear that. All right. Well, let's get straight to it. Well, first of all, before we get into the mechanics and the details of what's happening within the internal structures of the DNA, I wanted to get your perspective on the life and times of Sir Lester Bird. All my guests that are politically connected, I put that question to them because he was Prime Minister in this country for at least 2 terms, as I recall. Of course, his term ending in 2004, I'll emphasize. Your thoughts on Lester Bird and his legacy and impact on the political landscape of Antigua Barbuda?
Certainly, Darren. You would have seen the press release put out by our president and political leader, Ms. Joan Masayo, on this particular matter. And certainly I joined with her in echoing those sentiments. We give condolences to his family and close friends, of course. Mr. Bird, as I knew him then way back in the 70s and so on, was always a approachable person in my mind. We've always exchanged pleasantries, and even before he ascended to prime ministership, and we've never lost that greetings when we encountered across a similar pathway. I worked for Liat for many, many years, and he was principal person there, even when he was prime minister. And we've always had some a very good, pleasant exchange. And he knows my views, and was very respectful to my views on these matters. Certainly, I admired him pretty much because I was an avid cricketer, and I really yearned for him in his fast bowling days, and saw his feat in those kind of scenes, of course.
Right.
So I think he was, sad to miss him, sad to lose him, but I think he played a part in the socio-economic development of Antigua and Barbuda.
What do you think his overall legacy will be, though? I mean, we pretty much have an idea when we think of Papa Bird. We think of his legacy with respect to lands and labor, the progress of labor relations in the country and advancement of the working class, etc., etc. What do you think Lester Bird's legacy would be?
I think he came on the scene at a time when there was a tourism thrust, eager for a proper tourism thrust for Antigua and Barbuda. And I think that he played a part in revolutionizing the tourism industry and the structure of it. And he found that both the infrastructure and the actual marketing and management of tourism was one and the same thing, and had to move them together. So I think that he played a very good part in that economic affairs ministry that he had, and his tourism thrust, St. John's development, and that kind of thing. I think that he...
Understood. Is the party going to be represented at the state funeral, by the way?
I have not seen any official invitation, but I really didn't place a great figure. I mean, I think that he's a man to be respected.
Okay.
For what it's worth.
All right.
I haven't seen any official invitation.
All right, understood. All right, let's turn our attention to what's happening within the Democratic National Alliance. You would have had your convention several weeks back. What has happened since then? I know I would have had an engagement with your party chairperson maybe 2-3 weeks ago. on other matters. But I want to ask you, as the SecGen, you play an important role, as any SecGen does in any political party. What has really transpired since then that you think the listeners ought to know as far as the DNA is concerned?
Indeed. We continue to strengthen the institution, because institutionalizing it in the form of our Congress is one thing, but once you left the doors, you've closed those doors of Congress, there's still quite a lot of work to do, and we are working seriously on the strengthening of the institution. Mm-hmm. Our sectors are being looked at, are being worked at. The other supporting committees that are necessary to carry the management, or to assist the management committee, the national committee, and that kind of thing. So we are doing that. We are presently engaged in a strategic, short-term strategic thrust, which will run us through from September on to the end of November. That will change the face of the party in some form. Mm-hmm. We'll see a greater light to the public, and we certainly are working on that, and we're very much at the tail end of it, just to get the action in progress right now.
What committees are we talking about here? If you could you break those down for us?
Yes, certainly. From the document we call for the youth, the women's committee, the mobilizing committee, the communications committee. Those are the major thrusts, the diaspora committee, and so on. So those have to go together, have to complete it, and then we'll have a fully outlined management committee that reports to the national committee that is due to meet before the end of this month, which is the second month after convention. Mm-hmm. And other than that, the other subsidiaries that will come on stream, but those are not imminent at this point in time. Okay. But those committees are very, very important to get them going. The people are there. It's just to get all the TORs, the terms of references, and put together, and we understand that we must put these things in form and fashion. The DNA really is we're structured completely different from some of the other parties. We do see the need for a bottom-up management structure, and there's where we have a great difference between ourselves and some of the others, because we believe a lot in our people contributing towards the destiny of the organization, of the country when it comes to the country, and of any issues that may come on the table from time to time.
Are there any particular models that you're using in the formulation of these committees and in the way you're choosing to structure the party? And by models, I mean models of other political parties in the English-speaking Caribbean or elsewhere that you think have proven to be efficacious?
Well, we use a hybrid of models, of course. We have experience in areas. We have experience in the Cuban model. We have experience in the British model. We have experience in the American model. And then we have our local experience, depending on the local environment and what is required and what we have seen existed over a period of time in Antigua, and the failure of some of those stereotype situations that we see.
Yeah,
we believe.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. You complete your point. Sorry.
Yes, I was saying that we believe that once you get into government, you have to have the constituency, the parish councils on, so we have power being shared, not only just coming down from the top, but certainly you have the people playing a great part in their own destiny.
Mm-hmm. What do you think the greatest failing of the two main parties, I'm referring, of course, to the Antigua-Barbuda Labour Party and the United Progressive Party, of which you are a part for some time. What do you think the greatest failing of those political parties and the way they're structured what do you think their greatest failings are?
We have to have a commitment for people to really participate, and when they participate, they must see their involvement must be genuinely accepted, and if it's rejected, it's genuinely show the reason why it's not. And I just think that some genuinity on the part of the involvement of people, not just as a catchword, but it must be effective. Because there are a lot of people outside there with knowledge and understanding and could guide the destiny of the country that are not really taken seriously. So we have a different approach to that kind of thing. We're committed. We've seen the failures, and we've seen it happen time and again, and we believe that we have the solution for that, because that's what we are, a solution-oriented organization, and practical with it too.
Right. The criticism that I've heard of the DNA with respect to its stance or its posture with respect to various national issues is that there's always this, all right, we're going to analyze, we're going to consult, we're going to go through this with various committees and at various levels. And this sounds very much like that. And there is that adage or that phrase that people bandy about from time to time, paralysis by analysis. When you're in leadership, sometimes decisions have to be made on a dime, and the time for all that consultation and analysis and whatnot is just simply not there, and decisions have to be made. That's why you were elected. How would you respond to those criticisms or observations?
Yeah, well, we'll take those criticisms on board, and certainly...
Oh, so you have heard them?
I've heard one or two talkings of that, because we haven't jumped and joined into everything and so on. Okay. But this is not to say that we have not really make a position in it. Really. But we take whatever criticism that comes and the comments of our people, because we love our people. Okay. And once they are thinking in a different form, we certainly can take it on board and can explain some of the situations or some of the reasons why we have taken some positions.
Has the party, speaking of people, has the party experienced measurable or tangible or perhaps substantial is the word I might want to use, growth leading up to and post-convention? I mean, have you seen that, hey, there's a momentum, a shift in your direction?
Yeah, we have in fact, Darren, we have in fact seen the registrations, and we're still on registration drive on our website. Very simple, very easy for you to become a member. Just go on our website and you certainly have it all there. So we have seen quite a lot of that happening. Okay.
And, can you give me percentage terms, like the party has grown X% in the last, 6 months, or whatever timeline you prefer? Just to give, I'm not going to ask you for an absolute number, because I haven't been very successful in the past, but it's at least giving the listeners some sense of, hey, something seems to be happening here. Percentage numbers might be helpful.
Yeah, certainly. While I'm hesitant to just put that part there, I just want to satisfy the public by saying our movement has been great. I have seen, coming up to our convention, anything in the region of 60% growth from the membership that we have had. And it continues to grow day after day. People are calling, and while some are hesitant to put their name down as a member, the support is coming through, and it's coming through right across the board. I mean, just not one area alone, but certainly we have seen the youth, we're seeing people in the diaspora, we're seeing people in the government sectors, we're seeing people, coming and inquiring and making their contribution.
All right, Mr.
What I will say, I will say here, that those who may have fears and may thought about other things before, now is the time for you to get back on board and be in the vanguard, because the original thrust of the DNA still remains very much alive, and it's more needed now than ever.
All right. Mr. General Secretary, we do have to pause to share a few messages, and when we come back, we're going to turn our attention to matters of a national concern, the handling of the COVID-19 pandemic being chiefest among them.
Certainly.
Antiguans and Barbudans at home and abroad. On Tuesday, August 31st at 7 p.m., join the Diaspora Progressives for their second virtual public forum featuring the UPP candidates of the South. Tune into Observer Radio, Progressive Radio, or My UPP Facebook page to hear the candidates' plans for the diaspora and the rebuilding of our country. Our country can do better. It must do better.
They say I'm a foreigner because I live in America. They say I just sing in soul and how I can't sing calypso. I am here to tell them I'm a born Antiguan. I may live in New York City, but my culture lives in me.
Bell Lab Services, a medical laboratory that offers a wide range of services. Bell Lab is convenient in so many ways. It's quick, accurate, excellent quality control provided by professional medical technologists. Results are faxed directly to your doctor. Open Mondays to Fridays, 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. and Saturdays, 8 a.m. to 12 noon. Bell Lab Services, Wood Center. Friendly, quick, and convenient in so many ways. Call 562-1391 for further information.
This is Observer Radio.
Your voice counts. Your questions are answered. This is Observer AM.
It's now 7:31 in Antigua Barbuda. This is Observer AM. Darren Matthew Ward in your company, and we are continuing our discussion with the General Secretary of the Democratic National Alliance, Mr. Gatesworth James. Mr. James, the country, of course, the nation is now witnessing an increase in the number of COVID-19 cases. Of course, the blame game has started, whether it's because of the visitors that are arriving at our shores, whether it's the fact that people are not adhering to the various protocols that the government has sought to establish. But also there is a significant degree of hesitancy among significant portions of the population with respect to the vaccine. Does the DNA have a prescription? Pardon my use of that medical term. With respect to this issue of vaccine hesitancy, there's a group, Freedom Fighters, as they have styled themselves, that have been advocating for, basically their rights and what they consider to be the errors of the administration. Where does the DNA come down in this debate of hesitancy and the behavior of the public with respect to the vaccination program?
Let me begin by saying, again, our heart goes out. Our heart goes out to all the frontline workers, people in the medical field, the security field, and so on, who are really putting their hearts in trying to get this a level field here on this pandemic. I think in the front line they've played an extremely strong part in bringing this thing and trying to wrestle with what is going on. And we know it's not integral, but certainly we must give them highest kudos for their continued. And we continue to hope that their lives will be spared and their strength will be renewed and vigor and thrust will go with them as they continue to work for us. Right? Okay. And while you say our position has always been, and I don't want to continue to flag this because we've said it before, that what goes wrong in the morning, don't think in the afternoon it can go right unless there is a turnaround from it. And this whole thing was really not handled properly. And but that just make we are where we are at this point in time.
Okay.
We really don't think that we should continue to just be blaming and cussing out people who are not vaccinated.
So how to address the issue of hesitancy?
Yeah, coming to that. Yeah, I just don't. I think that we should not really be continuing to blaming people for not doing certain things and so on, but rather to continue in an education, a relentless education type of environment. Really, we continue to appeal we ourselves in the DNA will continue to appeal to people to continue to observe all the public health protocols and be wary of exposing yourselves for the general good. I think that to get over it, our people have got to be, those in authority have got to be understanding to other views. I saw when the freedom fighters people started and the type of smear that went around and the castigation of political involvement and things of this kind. I think that that's a wrong approach. I think people do have their freedom to the extent that it does not affect the national good. So it is our relationship that is going to play a big part. We denounced the heavy-handedness by the police the other day. I don't think that was necessary. That just created an excitement that was not necessary, and it created further division. So we really have a problem in some of these things. How we get over it? It's a continuous education, and not only in mass form, but in segmented form. You've got to get down to the little groups, to even at the children's area. You've got to be talking about vaccinating children and that kind of thing. A lot more preparatory work is needed in this area for people to understand and appreciate the requirement. Yes, there is a concern about the vaccine and the efficacy of them, and I think that is important. Social media is very, very quick to get these things, and they may get the wrong information the first time around, but there must be a total new type of communication and education that will sort of transcend this entire country and away from the political kind of thing. I think our politicians are playing, our ruling politicians are playing too much of frontline when they're really not the experts. I don't see the cabinet note saying that they're guided by the health people. I see the pronouncements coming out. I mean, like you're moving. Well, like you're moving.
Mr. James, in fairness, I happen to receive the cabinet notes on a weekly basis, and there is at least an indication that they are listening to the healthcare professionals. I think in the last cabinet notes, the acting CMO was there, and she would have provided data on which they would have arrived at one decision or another. So I don't know if that is entirely fair. Not that I speak as a spokesperson for them. They have Max for that. But I'm just trying to be fair in this particular point that you're making, or achieve fairness for the benefit of the listeners. If you understand what I'm saying.
I appreciate your thought. But when I see notes like the cabinet, the acting chief medical officer was invited to agree with the cabinet that so many students from Cuba should be let in a particular way. I think that it goes the other way. I don't know if that is the intention. It's the intention of cabinet note is to show the power of cabinet, or it is to say the cabinet consulted with the chief medical officer who made an assessment in terms of how it can be handled, and the decision arrived at says that these people can just go straight to their homes or things. It's probably the way it is written, but it comes over as a little braggadocio type of beat in my chest type of thing. They probably need to look at how they write in, if that is the case, because it doesn't really show the authority in the chief medical people.
Okay.
Right? It doesn't show it at all.
All right. Does the party have a position as it relates to the visitors to our shores, whether or not they should all be vaccinated, or the government is right in its approach thus far in not mandating vaccination for arriving visitors?
Oh, I think the party is not opposed to visitors, to people coming into the country to come with a requisite vaccination. Things like that.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking if you think that there should be mandatory vaccinations for. In other words, to come to Antigua, you have to be vaccinated fully. Do you think that that is where we ought to go?
Well, this situation, there was a time. Well, there is still a time when you can't go to a particular country without your vaccination for cholera and
several countries. Several countries. Yeah.
So that a situation like that is not really new. It is a situation where you can dictate who can come into your country and what documentation is required.
So the party would the party support that position if the government so decides?
Well, this is what I'm saying, is that if the health people, if our health officials say that this is a protocol that it should be implemented, you mean the politicians really they are the people in charge of public health. They're the people that know what they're doing. So once you're guided in that form, you certainly have to push along. Okay. It's not a politician's call. This is a health folks' call.
Okay. I understand the point that you're trying to make. As far as the economics, though, the economic situation in the country, many people have debated, the effectiveness of government policy as it relates to protecting those particularly who are particularly vulnerable. Does the DNA how does the DNA view our current situation as it relates to our economic well-being at this time?
Dire. I don't think the politicians are reaching to the ground and understanding what is happening out there. There are people out there that are suffering. There are single mothers and other homes and so on that are really, really suffering out there, and I don't think the politicians are reaching to that. I think they need to be attention paid, because I don't want the situation to come to a level where we have anarchies and that kind of thing, but there are people that are hungry and in need of basic requirements out there, and I think that's where a lot of attention needs to be placed. So just speaking and beating your chest in certain form is not sufficient. If you're there to serve the people, so look for the most vulnerable people and see how they are living, see what goes on. Take a walk around the public market, take a view around the communities, and see what's happening.
Despite the fact that the government is under-resourced, they repeat it ad nauseum that the revenue has dropped precipitously, and so they don't have the wherewithal to fulfill their obligations, let alone provide safety nets to the extent that opposition parties have suggested.
The fact is that if the government feels that they cannot handle the matter, handle the situation, well, just get out of government and allow other people who have the ideas and are ready to go on with it. Okay. If they're not in a position to do that and they don't know how to do it, they'll let other people take it on. Okay. And so the country will continue to breathe.
Mr. James, I must ask you a political question. Of course, you're a politician. Yeah. Are you planning on running in the next general elections?
Anything is possible, Darren, at this point in time.
Okay.
Anything is possible.
Okay. And what about Mr. Anthony Stewart? We haven't heard from him in a little while. Is he still a major figure in the party?
Very much a major figure, but he's not on island at this point in time.
Oh,
so
okay.
Very much a major figure. Yeah.
What role does he play in the party?
He is the second vice president.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right.
So he has a position. We have the structure calls for president, who eventually is a political leader, first vice president in Bruce Goodwin, second vice president in Anthony Stewart, and then we have a chairman, this is Malika Parker, and she has a deputy chairman in Louis Rivera.
Okay.
Right. So the structure is good for
understood. Well, we gotta go. We have to go to the second morning edition of the Big Stories. Mr. Gatesworth James, Secretary General of the DNA. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.